Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and today I am joined by an old friend and compatriot, and we worked together many years, Kelso Sturgeon. Good morning, Kelso. How are you feeling today?
It is wonderful. I'm enjoying the cool weather in Las Vegas. You know, it's down from 110 to like 106, and you know, it's a delightful life to live.
And we're having a cold spell, in other words.
And it's getting better by the day.
Very good. We had a lot of football and baseball games last night. We got a big horse racing coming up over the weekend. I know you have a lot of information, so I'm just going to turn it over to you and tell me what you have on your mind.
Okay, well, you know, first of all, in the first week of the NFL preseason, it's very dangerous to draw any conclusions, but a couple of things did come to mind last night, and obviously we don't see every game, at least I didn't. But, you know, I've had big questions about whether the Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck is going to come off that serious shoulder injury and be himself. Now, last night he looked reasonably comfortable and played well, but, you know, I don't think that that says a whole lot about what's coming. You know, when the real hitting starts in the regular season, those defensive linemen and linebackers, they all have an attitude, and they wouldn't show mercy to the mother. And I think that he may well be in a little bit of trouble, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him last but maybe 2 or 3 games during the regular season. I hope I'm wrong, but from what I understand, it was like walking on tiptoes last night, and he survived. He did reasonably well, but, you know, the heat wasn't really on. And you and I both know that those defensive guys can really turn up the heat when it counts. And I think that's really going to work against him. I don't think he's going to make it. Now, on the other hand, I thought that the Cleveland Browns rookie quarterback Baker Mayfield played lights out for a rookie. He seemed to do everything right, and the one thing that I noticed in just watching him is he has a great football sense. And I know a lot of people don't understand what that means, but he just instinctively does the right thing. Of course, that instinctively has been earned over many years of playing the game. He's the quarterback of the future in Cleveland, but the veteran Tyrod Taylor will be the starting quarterback. He was 5 for 5 last night, throwing for 99 yards and a touchdown, and at least at the beginning of the season, Taylor will be the man. I don't want to overplay my hand on this, but Mayfield reminded me of the late John Unitas, and that is quite a compliment.
Well, that goes back some, and a whole different game back in those days. I was a big fan of Johnny Unitas, and but there haven't been too many people that could touch him. I was very impressed with Mayfield myself, and I thought Tyrod Taylor played his usual conservative game, which I think Cleveland needs because they had 41 turnovers last year. They need to cut down on those. The dangerous part about the Cleveland Browns is their organization has been such a failure for so long, it's hard to imagine that they could turn it around. However, when you look at their roster and the addition of Mayfield, who may get in there this year, at some point, but their roster is very impressive, and they easily could win 5 or 6 games this year, even though they've only won 1 game in the last out of the last 32, which is quite amazing. But that organization has to prove that they can stop tripping over themselves, so to speak. But right now, I have a ticket on the Browns winning over 4.5 in over 5 games. So, I mean, if it hits 5, I push that one, win the 4.5. But I've seen the line go up to 5.5 and 6. There's a lot of money on the Browns, and usually the bigger players, the smart guys, so to speak, the wise guys, usually take the value with the Browns. They did last year. They cost themselves a lot of money, but they did it again last night. They took that team from a 3-point dog to a 1-point favorite. Didn't have any problem at all covering that one.
Well, I'm a great Hugh Jackson fan, and I realize a lot of people might laugh when, it's noted that he's 1-31 since he arrived in Cleveland. But you hit the nail right on the head. This is a terrible, terrible organization that when it comes to the fork in the road always goes the wrong way. And but I thought they played well last night. They played with enthusiasm, and they looked like a fundamentally sound football team, which is the trademark of Jackson football. I agree with you. They're certainly eligible to win 5 or 6 games this season. But until you do it, you don't know. I'll have to be a skeptic until they do it. But you and I are in complete agreement on how you feel about them.
Well, they're in a division with Pittsburgh, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a tough division. Now, granted, the Bengals have been kind of a mess themselves the last couple of years. Obviously, they scored a lot of points last night. It was a preseason game against the Bears, who everybody says has a pretty good defense. Well, they did put up a lot of points. But that's a preseason game. It's the first week. They're playing a lot of players. It really doesn't matter that much. But, Cleveland, if the Bengals, I don't think they're going to surpass the Ravens or the Steelers. But they could surpass the Bengals if the Bengals keep tripping over themselves as they have the last couple of years. But it's still going to be difficult for them to go much further than that. But, for all the people in Cleveland that have been big losers for so long, and they just lost LeBron James in basketball, I'm hoping that they get a few wins this year so they can celebrate. And they open the season, by the way, hosting their hated rival right down the road, the Steelers, comes to town. And that's going to be a big sellout with a lot of angry people because they hate each other. And, of course, I think most of the hate comes from the Browns to the Steelers because the Steelers have been so successful and the Browns have not. But there was a lot of other games last night that were kind of surprising. What did you see that really lit up on your screen?
Well, I wish I knew why the Los Angeles Rams offense came up such a failure. I know that their offense had worked well during the week, and they could do absolutely nothing against the Ravens. I'd be a little concerned if I was there.
Well, a lot of times that comes with coaching, and they come in with a vanilla game plan, and they don't really care, and they just come in, that kind of a situation with that attitude. And, it's a road game. They're completely across the country, and they probably, they have 3 more games to go. I'm sure they're going to put up a bigger effort in game 2 and game 3. Usually game 4, there's not too much effort put up by many teams, but game 3 is like a dress rehearsal for what game 1 will look like as they open the season.
There's no question about it. The one game I had particular interest in last night was the Green Bay hosting Tennessee game. There's a lot of dissension in the Green Bay camp, and apparently quarterback Aaron Rodgers is absolutely furious that they traded off all those receivers, including Jordy Nelson. And he's let it be known that he doesn't like what they've got, and I just wonder where that's going to end up. In the first game, you can't really tell much, but here's a guy who is a superstar quarterback who is really upset about what the team has done, and apparently they didn't consult him either, which I think is a mistake. You've always got to talk to your quarterback. The fact that they won, I don't know if that means anything at all, but Green Bay needs to be watched if you're better, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I talked about that on a different podcast yesterday, and it does seem strange that they would get rid of Nelson without consulting with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers, arguably, given equal talent around him, is the best quarterback in football. But he doesn't have equal talent around him. I am not a McCarthy fan. I don't think he has performed well as a head coach for a number of years. But I'm not going to sit here and rant about that. But getting rid of Nelson, if it's true that Aaron Rodgers didn't have any input into that, that was a mistake, in my opinion. Somebody should be considered.
Well, I don't think that people who've never played the game understand the chemistry that's required to put together a passing game where a quarterback and the receivers are all on the same page. The timing is down to the split second and everything that goes with it. And according to Rodgers, he actually dressed down the receivers that the Packers have and told them that they were all basically bums, that they didn't know what they were doing. And that's how irate he is over the loss of Nelson.
Wow. Now, we talked about a little bit about the Rams and why they didn't show up. Well, they had a cross-country trip to Baltimore, and that's tough. I mean, you're traveling with 100 guys, and they want to evaluate some talent. Now they come home next week, and they're going to be playing the Raiders. Now that's that's not an in-city rivalry anymore because the Raiders moved away, but they are at home against the Raiders, and the following week, week 3, they're at home against the Houston Texans. Now, I think you're going to see more of an effort in those two games than you saw last week. Now, we haven't seen the Raiders yet because they have to play this weekend. So, we don't know what to expect there. And, of course, they got Gruden back there as the head coach, which, everybody's watching that $10 million a year man as a head coach, which is a big price tag. So, anyway, I think you're going to see more effort. You can't tell much on a week 1 situation, but I expect these teams that got blasted last week to put up a bigger effort in week 2 and week 3.
Listen, I don't disagree a little bit, and it's truthfully in one of the games tonight, Detroit and Oakland both have new coaches. I'm a little interested in how they go, but a better question. The money has showed in a big way on the Jets tonight at home against Atlanta. I don't know where the money came from. It's got to be smart money. What do you think?
Well, there's smart money. It makes a difference. People that bet preseason, especially big dollars, I have to respect the line moves a little bit more than I do in the regular season because information is so difficult to get. So when we do dig up information, we do make big plays, and I'm a player, and I'll make a big play if I get good information. So I respect line moves because if somebody knows or feels like they know that the quarterback rotation or the offensive line rotation favors one side or the other, then you have an edge that you're not going to really have in the regular season because in the regular season, 99% of the time, all the teams are going out there and playing hard to win. That isn't the case in preseason games, especially in week 1. Now, when I talk about week 1, I discount the Hall of Fame game because that's one game. So this week is week 1. If the money's coming in on the Jets, and they have pretty good quarterback battle going on there. So you look at the games, who's going to win the second half of the game really comes into play in the preseason. If the coach and the quarterback have some, they want to see what they can really do. And these guys are fighting for jobs. It's either you're bagging groceries in the grocery store or you're quarterback in the NFL. There's a big difference. So they're fighting hard to get those jobs. And if you can win the second half of these games, you usually are the team that is, or the player that's going to get that job and the team that's going to cover that spread. So looking at the quarterback rotation for the Jets, they're very competitive. They have a good head coach. They had a very competitive team last year, even though they were kind of new to each other and everything. And Atlanta doesn't really have to show anybody anything. And
right.
I doubt if you're going to see any of the big stars for Atlanta on the field this week at all.
By the way, that's a very important point you made, too. that Atlanta has nothing to prove to anybody. They're a good football team. They should have a very good season. And just between me and you, I follow your advice. I've already bet on the Jets. You know, I said somebody knows something I don't know.
Now, going to that thinking. Last night, going along with those thoughts. Last night we saw 9 overs and 3 unders.
Right.
And I feel like the defenses have been a little handcuffed by the NFL, or a lot handcuffed by the NFL. And if you're going to have quarterbacks out there trying to win these games or win this position that they're fighting for, backup position in the NFL is a big deal. Then they're going up against third string or fourth string players on the defensive side. You could see a lot of points in a game like that. So,
I think so. You know, this new blocking tackling rule where you must keep your head up is the stupidest thing that the NFL has ever done. I don't ever recall making a tackle or a block with my head up because I didn't want to break my neck. That doesn't mean I hit somebody with my helmet or anything such as that, but it's a heads-down game. And I think that players are going to be very cautious, and the observation that you made is absolutely accurate. It's going to be very interesting how all this plays out.
I agree with you, Kelso. Listen, I want to thank you for your time today. We keep these podcasts short, usually under 20 minutes. And I want to ask you if you have something going on this weekend that you want to promote, and how the people can get a hold of you to get those plays should they want to.
Okay. First of all, I opened the preseason last night 2-1. My loser was San Francisco by a half point. But I'm giving away absolutely free the NFL preseason for those who come in for a seasonal membership in my Best Bets Football Club, which costs just $1.99 for the season. And you can get that at my website, KelsoSportsHandicapping.com, or at my office, toll-free, 1-800-755-2255.
Thank you, Kelso. And all my plays are at JimFeist.com, and you can get those as well. Again, Kelso, thank you for your insights, knowledge. Enjoy talking to you again. And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in and listening. Thank you, Kelso.
Thank you very much.